there's not been a really good way to quantify health. And that's always driven me a little bit crazy because if you look at my LinkedIn profile, one of the things that I claim is that I'm the healthiest motherfucker on this planet. Now, whether or not you believe that, it doesn't matter because as long as I believe it, that's all that really matters. But anyways, one of the things I've been obsessing over the course of my professional career is trying to figure out what is a very simple yet accurate way of really defining this elusive thing called health, right? And if we just were to say, well, it's the absence of disease, I'm not willing to buy into that because I think that there's much more to be considered, even if we're looking at a group of people who just don't have a disease, right? There's going to be different levels of health, even amongst the people who are without disease. So anyways, so let's talk about how to quantify this and what I've ultimately come up with. And this is a very simple way of doing it. I find it to be extremely accurate. And within the simplicity of this equation, there is a lot of complexity. And this is what I love about kind of math and figuring out, quantifying things. When we can really come up with an elegant solution, it's very simple, but again, all the complexity is kind of built in. So let me show you what I mean here. There's two things we're going to look at. Number one is body fat. Okay, so we're going to take a look at body fat. And now there is an optimal amount of body fat that every human being should have. And everybody's going to be a little bit different. So my optimal body fat is going to be different than yours, right? Somebody else's is going to be different than somebody else's. We all have this kind of genetically predetermined optimal body fat, okay? But when we're above that, that's a signal that there's something wrong with our health. If we're too lean, right, that's also a problem. But here's what we're going to do to measure this. And this is all going to shake out in a little bit here, so bear with me, but it's going to be the number one minus your body fat, okay? And now I know just off the top of your head, you might be thinking, well, that means that the lower the better, but that's not the case because there's other parts of this equation that I'm going to get into in a minute. But let me just use my number. So I'm about 10%. So I'm going to say 1 minus 0.1, which would be 10%, is going to be 0.9, right? So my number would be 0.9. And then we're going to multiply that by 0.9 by your fitness score. Okay, so your fitness score. And what does it mean when we're talking about fitness, right? So when we look at someone who's very, very fit, they have three things that they're very well balanced in, okay? And those three things are, I'm going to write a fitness score. And they're going to be your strength plus your power plus your endurance. All of those things are important. We don't want to bias one over the other because we need all of those things in everyday life. And the person or the people who have the highest levels of those things are going to be some of the healthiest people around, right? So again, it begs the question of like, how do we measure that stuff? Well, when I came up with the measurements, I wanted to make sure that the things that we're doing are things that are going to carry over best in everyday life. All right. And I created a software program where you can actually look at the most important things from each of those categories. You can enter in your own data and you can get your fitness score. All right. And I'm going to post a link for it in the comments below, but it's a software called UFit, UFIT question mark. And you can go there, you can set up a free account, you can put your data in there, you can get your fitness score, and it's going to look at all three of those things, right? And then you're going to take that number and you're going to multiply it by this number here, okay? So let's just say that my UFit score is 900, okay? So now I've got two things here. I've got my fitness and I've got my body fat. Okay, we're factoring those two things into the equation. And now the thing that's going to give you the most health in this equation is your fitness, right? This is where the majority of the weight in this equation lies. Okay. What's most important is that this number gets really, really high. Here's where I have the most opportunity to affect my health. right? And where did this come from? Well, it's from analyzing and assessing who are the healthiest people in the world. And if I were just to ask you that, just broadly, if you had to give me a category of folks in this world who were the healthiest people around, what would you say? And for me, and I've done a lot of thinking on this, it is young athletes. It's the 25-year-old who's been training for most of his or her life, and they've got this tremendous amount of fitness, this tremendous amount of human performance. They've got an optimal body fat, because if their body fat wasn't optimized, they wouldn't be able to perform physically very well. So those are the healthiest people. And if you're thinking, well, what about all of the scores from the doctor? What about your blood pressure and your cholesterol and your blood sugar and all these other things? Well, the way that we can optimize those numbers is through superior levels of performance. If we can get your body to perform very, very well, and you're at an optimal body fat percentage, and we factor those two things together, the bigger this number is going to be for you. So for me, this would be 810. The bigger that number is, I can guarantee you, unless you have some sort of a genetic predisposition for disease, if you don't have any of those things, you are going to have amazing numbers from your doctor, right? So again, the simplicity of this also brings with it all of the complexity and all of the other parts of health that you might be thinking of that maybe you believe are not in this equation, but they all are, because everything has to come together to get this score to go up, right? You can't just be a runner because you're going to lack in your strength. You're going to lack in your power. You can't just be a power lifter because you're going to lack in your endurance. You have to have a balance amongst all of these things, and you have to have an optimal body fat to be able to maximize this number, right? It's a beautiful synergy of two different areas of your physical life where you can optimize your health. And now, just to be clear, we're talking about physical health here. I know there's other elements of health, right? There's obviously psychological health, there's spiritual health, the health of your relationships, like those kinds of things would be separate. I'm specifically focusing on the physical end of health, right? So when you can optimize your fitness, when you can eat the right foods so that your body fat goes to the right place, it allows you to really, really build your fitness. So here's what I recommend you do. Try to figure out your health score and post it in the comments below, because I'm always interested to know, guys over 40, where are you at on this journey? Where are you? And what's possible? And that's the most exciting part, is what's possible. So get into the UFit software. It's free. You can get in there for free because I'm kind of a data nerd and I want to know what is the current state of affairs. Even if you don't feel like you're very fit, get in there, put the data in that you have, and then collect the data and add to it as you get more and more information. And it's going to give us a much more accurate picture of your health. So that leads me into part 2 of this little presentation here. Now that we understand how to measure health, right? The person with the highest health score here, obviously, is the healthiest person. So what is the optimal program that's going to get people the highest health score, right? So if you're like, look, I really want to up my health score, everything you're saying makes sense to me. You know, if I'm looking for a program, because again, there's a million programs out there, but not all of them are factoring all this in, right? Quite honestly, a lot of the fitness, the nutrition, the weight loss programs, all of them are strictly focused on one thing, and that's aesthetics. But look, the leanest person in the world does not mean it's the healthiest person in the world. And I know that from experience because I've been doing this for so long, right? We need more than that. There needs to be more. We have to be better, right? So how do we know what is the optimal program? Well, it's very simple. If I erase this and I take my health, right? And we know how to measure that already. But if I take that and I divide that by time, what is the program that's going to build your health in the shortest amount of time? In other words, we need to look at efficiency. Is the program that you're on, is it efficiently making you stronger, more power, better endurance, optimizing your body fat, right? Is it efficient? Because there's a lot of different ways to build those things, to improve those things. But I find that many of them are extremely inefficient. So we want to be very, very efficient, but we also, of course, want to be effective, right? We want to see the score go up, because if we just do a bunch of work and the score never moves, that's just like, it's just treading water, right? We don't want to tread water. We want to actually improve as the years go by, okay? And then, of course, the very last thing is it safe, right? So there's three things to factor into this equation. We know we want to improve health. We know we want to do it in the shortest amount of time. We want it to be effective. Of course, effective. We need it to be efficient. Of course, efficient. And we need it to be safe. Because we might be able to just pharmacologically boost up someone's strength, but is that the safest thing? And I would say probably not. So anyways, so there it is. I hope this makes sense. Let me know, what is your health score? Where are you at right now? And where do you think you can improve in this equation?